which I think we've stuck to pretty well. It hasn't run away with us too much, has it? So what time were we supposed to? No, we're bang on. I think. So
We are until now, but
we are yeah, we are scheduled a break, but do people just want to power through?
I think just power through whilst it's still fresh in our heads.
Yeah, rather than just forget. Okay, so yeah, so basically now is our chance to report back to each group with all the amazing things we've been discussing. Who wants to go first? James, do you want? I imagine you want things need to be fresh in your mind. Do you want to report back first?
Sure. Yeah. We covered a lot. Mostly the idea of a rebuild or readjustment towards React. And I think the consensus was that actually starting kind of fundamentally from scratch again with a solely React application was not desirable, because we still want to be sort of working on UV. It's quite a sort of vast project, but also there's a lot in the UV code base that still is really valuable and works really well. So Ed talked about the pub sub system, which is a publication subscription which fires off events within UV, and so things react, different components react to different events. And we thought that might be, that's something that works well and we might want to keep, and have React components sort of working within that wider system. So I think, yeah, that was a nice kind of like feeling a bit more nuance in how it might look. It's not a sort of binary, it's all going to be React or it's all going to be as it is. There's these sort of more complex middle grounds there that are going to work really well, I think. We talked about well, basically the difficulty of developers attending community sprints. And there's a very good point that it's quite like a steep learning curve. So although the community sprints are very sort of like, it is possible to sort of just do as quite a low commitment. I think there's probably a requirement, if you want to do it on that level, that you already know the code quite well. So if you don't, then you can't do it on that sort of like low commitment level. So if your institution isn't sort of allowing you to spend weeks and weeks with the code, then you're kind of stuck basically. So the solution to that is kind of better documentation for developers, which we have been working on. We are working on. We talked a bit about outstanding NPM security issues, and obviously that can be a deal breaker using UV in institutions because of security concerns. So again, this is quite a difficult situation because they're so kind of intricately woven into the code, and extracting those deprecated dependencies is not a simple task quite often. And that's why they've been outstanding for such a long time. Anything else? We talked a bit about UI stuff, but I think we're all on the same page there. We like chats again. And the AAAF parsing. There are various different packages and libraries to parse AAAF manifests. And I think the conclusion there was that we just have to give more a test basically and see what we like working with. Especially AAAF helpers, which is new to me, but Ed has worked with in the past. Let me know if I've missed anything. Anybody else is in the chat?
I mean, we talked about a community sprint, didn't we? Like around security, and that seems to be as I said, we could talk about that in the next steering group meeting, because that seems to be a priority.
Yeah, I think it's a necessary next step because we really need to get to the place where just updating packages and dealing with security is routine and constant. And sometimes it's always going to be expensive and difficult, and we need to devote resources to it. But right now we're just behind. We need to catch up and then stay on top of it.
Yeah, and it's kind of why someone would use the universal viewer in the first place, because we take all of that pain away from having to do it. Every person working on a catalog out there in the world doing it individually, if we as a group can tackle it, then we're saving a lot of anguish.
And it is important to note, as we said in the tech call, that we actually dealt with a lot of these issues in our last dev experience sprint. It's just there are a few outliers that are difficult to untangle and then need more time. And if we can get those taken care of, the scary alerts will go away.
Has anybody from the non-technical group got any questions for the technical group?
Other than the security issues, where do you want to start? Sorry.
I think the other thing is the conversation did kind of crystallize a reasonable path toward modernizing the code by using React without having to rewrite the whole application at once. And so doing that is a logical next step. And I think it's worth acknowledging that concerns have been raised about, the size of React and the dependency on that library. But practically speaking, we already have React in the UV. It's a technology that's widely understood by the community. It seems like a logical step, and we have to acknowledge the potential downsides. But if we do this intelligently, we can avoid being more locked in than necessary, which lets us pivot again in the future.
Can I ask as well what you see the outcome of this discussion to be? Is it a roadmap or just a set of goals?
I think we have a clear set of goals, which maybe the steering committee can turn into a roadmap.
I think it's also worth saying that a lot of the questions that came up would fit in with the community sprints that we're already doing. So it gives the opportunity for people to put a little bit of time in towards improving it or working with other people to get something that they want shipped and out of the door.
Yeah, absolutely. And that really is the point of having community projects, isn't it? That people can join in and help to do that. That's excellent.
Yeah, that's really encouraging, because I think part of my perspective when I hear about these sort of technical discussions is they seem so sort of separate to other things. So hearing that they can be incorporated in what we're doing, and sort of alignment between, I think, the non-technical side of things and the technical side of things over our discussions. Because I was worried it was going to be some massive piece of work that everything it has to stop for. But that's not the case, no?
Well, we talked about. Sorry, Damien.
Oh yeah, no, go ahead.
I think the kind of approach we talked about, the kind of hybrid approach, is appealing because you can kind of work on stuff, even on new features, whilst working in React, and it's not wasted work. So it could be two birds with one stone. But as in the discussion, Damien pointed out that at some point, you've got to stop just like bolting on React components and sort of normalize it on some level.
Well, so are there any other questions for the technical group?
Chris has got a question in the chat.
Oh.
Chris is asking, I heard that switching to React for the whole UV is not being considered. but are we going to adopt more components from libraries like Radix and Headless UI?
So I think it's not that we're not considering switching much of the code base to React. It's that we want to retain the current event-based architecture and avoid creating a monolithic, heavily coupled React app that's hard to maintain. Maybe treating each component as essentially an independent React app rather than just one big monster.
It's like remember that blog post, the famous blog post, JavaScript, the good parts, and stuff like that. It's like we've got UV, the good parts, which is, and we're kind of figuring out what those are. And, currently the bad parts are like the kind of tangled kind of jQuery bits that are really hard to reason about. It's, even for me, like I might have written it 7 years ago or something and come back to it. It's like, but with React, what it gives us is this unidirectional data flow, which is a lot easier. This is the kind of why React is so successful. It's much easier to reason about. UI as a function of state. Yeah, we don't have that at the moment. But yeah, there's plenty of good stuff in the UV that we can keep. Yeah.
Can I just ask a question? You said there was general agreement about UI. Could you summarize what that was?
It was more in terms of the tooling, the tools for UI. There's a component library called ShadCN, which works very well with React, and it means you don't have to write kind of buttons from scratch. Basically, you can just kind of import this code. So we didn't talk about the actual design of things, just the kind of the tool that could be used.
Okay, thanks.
So I suppose this is a bit of a question, not really about the content, but the format. Is the format of sort of workshopping with all UV interested developers and people experienced with it. Was that useful, do you think? And does it serve as community agreement, I think, going forward? Is this, because that's sort of what we want to do, is would people be happy with that? Is that what's happened?
I felt it was very helpful. There were some crystallizing moments for me.
Yeah, me too, definitely. And I feel like it's that there's always a limit to how much you can talk about stuff. We still explored some new ground on this, but at some point it'll get to a stage where you just have to write some code and see what happens. And I'm quite sort of excited to get to that stage where we're like experimenting with solutions, such as FFF helpers.
It sounds brilliant. It sounds really productive. So if there are any more questions before we move on for the technical group? No? Sarah, are you okay going through what we went?
I'll share my screen as well. Now I've discovered where keep the it'll let me do that. It'll let me do that. There we go. So we had we used a whiteboard to look at the personas that Erin so kindly and Lanny had made before we were here. So we had a set of personas and we asked everybody to self-identify with these personas, and we took the most frequently used. We ended up talking really more about the potential adopter, didn't we, than any of the others. And this is a really interesting discussion about we have a mix of people who haven't yet adopted the UV, those who've been using it for a while, A lot of people talking about what they wanted to see when they were looking at evaluation of which browser, which viewer to use. So things like, you know, why should I adopt the UV was a big point that they needed to see on the website. Wanted to know how the community works. Obviously, documentation, very important. Things like, you know, which file formats are supported. Accessibility as well, very heavily required. Not just an accessibility statement, but a real show and tell about how accessibility works with the UV. Make the examples and the config tools more obvious on the site. And then talked about the config editor with the explainers. Need to signpost this more effectively. And then we lost our whiteboard and had to create a different whiteboard until we found it again because Zoom. So a lot of the things that people wanted, we asked people to put the little green up arrows on the things they wanted the most so we could see which features of the website would be priorities. Things like viewer manifest, really well used, needs to be really prominent on the site. Things like an events calendar, a lot of things we've already discussed as part of the project, the ongoing project. Content for users, you know, features highlighted from a user point of view, not just, so we really had, we had two groups of people that will be using the website. We need to look at how the website caters for their specific journeys on the website. So UV users, so front-end UV users, and then UV adopters, institutions who are either using or looking to use the UV. Yeah, so we had a lot of really good, feedback here, so we can take these and turn these into GitHub tickets. GitHub was another thing that came up quite frequently as something that a lot of people probably wouldn't go to, those who are not GitHub users, those who are not developers. So that was definitely something we need to look at. And I think it's something we've already acknowledged in our project, that we need to try and put as much information on the website as we can for those who aren't going to GitHub. And if there is information on GitHub, to replicate it or move it over to the website. Is there anything else anybody wants to add that we came to conclusions about? Would have been nice to have more time, I think. We just scratched the surface, I think, of one persona. What does everyone else think? Who was in that group? Was it useful?
I think it was very useful. I think it's given us a really clear idea of what we should be prioritizing in the upcoming sprints. Sarah mentioned accessibility was mentioned time and time again. And I know there's a couple of people on the call. I know Richard's here. You contacted me, Richard, about accessibility, and I haven't had a chance to look at your email yet. But I think there's lots of opportunities going to come up in the coming months, especially because I was talking to Stacey, who's on our group as well, who is the chair of the IIIF usability and accessibility group. So I think this is a really good opportunity to sort of demonstrate best practice in that area. That I think we should really pursue. So working as a community and in the wider IIIF community, because it's something that obviously our users rightly prioritise. So I think we should prioritise it too.
We also did a shout out. Sorry, Stacey, go on.
No, that's right. I would add that today's conversation in general is really helpful because we've talked about how the personas right now are especially based on assumptions because we haven't gotten into any user testing or user research yet. And so having other people, new community members weigh in on the personas that we have, and just like even the last exercise where you're just sort of posting questions about and suggestions about what should be on the website, that's going to help us expand on our assumptions.
Absolutely. And if anybody here would like to be a tester or has any expertise in user stories, user journeys, personas, please let us know, because we have a really good place for you here to help us with that, or to, you know, if you don't know anything about it, to come and join us and learn along the way. Does anybody else from that group have any questions? Anybody from the tech team have any questions for us?
I guess I was wondering about how do we kind of bring the two together? Like what is the process from going from a user and stories and things to actually turning that into code? Like to me, that link is often a bit vague.
What do we think as a team? How could we do that?
I think the first, sorry, I can actually, hi. The first thing to do is to review what users need and who our users are, and what they're like doing on the website as a whole group, right? And then prioritize like the needs that we have, so the user stories, which are the most important. One of them might be including more information on the website instead of linking people to GitHub, or one might be like, I think the about content is on GitHub, it's not on the main website. So as an example, if that's really important, the whole group prioritizes it, and then that becomes something that gets built into the code, right? As an example, I think a conversation, put very simply, is a good place to start.
Absolutely.
I think we take a lot of things for granted as well as part of the community, and things that we know, we forget that other people don't know. So we need to sell the project a lot more. And we're sort of working with people who are going to come and spend a couple of minutes browsing through the website, and they will either want to know more or walk away and find something else. And at the minute, if they're directed to GitHub and they're not technical, then they probably are going to walk away.
That was exactly the sentiment we had in our group, to make it much easier to not have GitHub there as a barrier to be able to access information. And I think out of everything, that did come out as one of the biggest priorities. So I think turning what we have into actions is probably the next thing we should do in our sprint inception. Have a look through, turn them all into tickets, and work out which ones we want to include in this project. To put them in the community board, I think would probably be the best, and then take them over to the project board. So that's what I would do anyway, is have a discussion in the next inception, which is next week. If anybody would like to join this project, it's not too late. We're on sprint 2 of 4, so this is a good time to come in if you'd like to come in. Or if you'd like to be a tester, please do. But yeah, that was very much expressed, Mark.
I've got a bit of a question for, I suppose it's for the technical group, but it's not really about what you were doing. I'm thinking about how you interact with the website and who uses GitHub and all this business. As developers, would you actually go to the website or just use it as a place where you're directed to GitHub?
I think it's, even as a developer, it's quite difficult to find out what it does and how it works. Because you're more or less looking through the code. There isn't really what you need is a bullet point list of what you can do as a user and a developer to grab you quickly. But yeah, there is a high barrier for entry. I think you need to learn a lot before you can start working with it.
Yeah, and I think that's quite similar to in our session, Stacey was talking about having those different paths for different types of user. Yeah. Sorry, Damien, you got your hand up.
Oh yeah, I was just going to say, I think it's also a problem just that the information is scattered in a lot of different places right now without clear navigation between them. And if there were, a top level navigation at the main website that just helped me find everything, I would use that. And if everything linked back there to say the rest of the stuff is here, that would also be helpful.
I was going to say as well, like we talked about Tailwind CSS on our technical call. I use their documentation on their website daily. They've got really, really good docs, and the search works really well. And I don't want to look at GitHub as a developer. Like, I want that. That's what I want. So if we can do that, we're winning.
That's the plan. Yeah, we've got until the end of February really to do as much as we can. But yeah, everything here is really leading us to that outcome, hopefully.
Yeah, I just assume that you developers love GitHub. This is the thing. This is the problem with assumptions. I assume it's like you just love it.
This is the big secret. The big dirty secret about developers. We all hate to code. No, anything that makes our lives easier is welcome, basically. And Tailwind's documentation is really slick, and there's lots of projects out there that we could do that. Actually, we could list projects that do things well that we admire, and then just go and look at that and learn from it. Might be a good shout.
Yeah, that's a great idea. We talked a bit about the Micro viewer, and although I think we thought, or it says that their docs are written by AI, which is not good. The infrastructure for the docs is really good, and it does have. I think increasingly you see these docs that have like just a search bar at the top, and you kind of expect it to be able to return anything that you search. I'm not sure I'm not sure what platform people use for that. But,
well, I looked at the Tailwind ones. They use something called Algolia, which is like a really nice search solution, but it's you have to pay for it. So then, like, again, everything comes back to sustainability. Like, no such thing as a free lunch. Like, if you want the docs to be really slick and searchable and stuff, we may have to stump up for Algolia or something like that.
Yeah, I mean, that is an option. We're a steering group. That's something we can definitely discuss for spending.
And actually, a lot of the Digirati. Is there anybody from Digirati still on the call?
I think Paul's gone.
I think it. There was there used to be a website. Oh, Stevenson. There used to be. Was it for a Canvas panel? And that was a really good searchable docs website. Let me try and find it.
Docusaurus or something like that.
It was Docusaurus, yes.
Yeah.
That was quite nice because you could embed examples, so in more interactive examples.
Yeah, and I always felt that the search function returned useful stuff.
Oh, by Algolia.
Was it?
Yeah, that's what they use.
I think it's an offline version of it, though.
Right.
I think it might be using the components from there, but it's a static site, I believe.
Okay.
So we have 10 minutes left of this discussion if anybody would like to start another topic.
There's quite a few comments in the chat.
So we have some really useful examples. Yeah, the good thing about GitHub is that it's always a uniform presentation. Yeah, absolutely.
And we'll be keeping all these comments in the chat as well. I don't think they've been ignored. I'll
No.
be keeping these in the notes. Okay.
I was just going to say that the docs will always be on GitHub, right? Because we need them to be like open source, and people to be able to submit PRs.
Absolutely. Yeah, one of the things was, we need to make sure that we keep both up to date. And we need to have a process for that, don't we, really?
That's always a nightmare, isn't it? And then you start having multiple locations and things.
This might be
Okay.
useful if anybody has any questions for anybody else here, not directly related to the streams, but anything else anybody wants to ask or see. It's gone really quiet.
Our
We're
brains
flagging.
are full.
Yes,
They
I
are.
think so.
What is
Sounds-
the theme for UVCON 2026?
Oh, James. That's a good question. What does everyone think? It could be documentation at this point, but
Oh, please no. Please no.
full
Don't 4 hours of that.
documentation. Let us know. Have a think. At this point, I'm going to once again ask people to fill in the Menti. I'm going to put it in the chat. If you could do that before you leave, or do it now, that would be wonderful. I'll post it on the community split channel as well. Yes, I think we should, Richard. Yeah, definitely.
I'm traumatized after seeing my own face
that'd be nice.
frozen.
Slowly moving down the screen.
I had to kick my housemates off the broadband, so that's why it's now working all right.
Well,
Yes.
I'm just thinking about time and the fact that we haven't had, we've gone without a break for an earlier finish. So maybe we should start thinking about wrapping up and closing remarks. So I'm very grateful for those who stayed to the end. We didn't do bad, 28 people still on the call. I did think at one point that everyone would leave after the presentations, but everyone stayed and got involved, and that's absolutely amazing. And yeah, talking about UVCON 2026, well, I hope this isn't a standalone event. I hope this is an annual thing. I think it marked a shift in the way that UV is growing and developed and maintained, and how we work together. I'm very conscious of not using the term like the community. We're the community and other people are not. You know, this is the community. We're all here today, and it's clearer than ever that I think the UV really depends on this active, really well supported community, and I hope you all do feel well supported. And then everything we've talked about today, so the UX and the testing and governance and standards, everything feeds into that. So I think if you have one takeaway today from this session today, I really want it to be that the UV doesn't just happen to this community, it's steered by the community, by everybody here. So we're here to support, you know, the view is not the end of it, is it? It's here to support. So it's, you know, it's to support these amazing projects that are going on in the IIIF community. So I'm thinking about the moving books work that's going on, that's fab. The usability and accessibility work, this is so crucial to what we do. You know, we want to support librarians and archivists, and with all these amazing imaginations they have around digital storytelling. That's what we're here to do. So you can really guide our direction. Yeah, and we can all do our best to remove any barriers to viewing these incredible collection items we all have the privilege to look after. So while that's the sort of lovey-dovey bit over, I haven't invited you all here today just to have a chat. You know, we really want it to be for a reason. So sort of next steps wise, because I really want some concrete actions to come out of this today. So this is, you know, for example, like feeding into a roadmap. So our non-technical bit was probably the easiest because it is directly feeding into our next sprint of the website redesign, and it will. So people on that call, in that group, sorry, we will be using that. That will be being used. We'll go through that at the inception on Tuesday. So please come along and see it. Very important to action. And yeah, and we'll put all this work to be providing a better website for everybody, which I think feeds into the sort of other, is it priority pillar? I don't know, this sort of speak of strengthening contributor onboarding, I suppose, and support. So we want to keep working on documentation, as we just mentioned, and more structured support and easier channels and more obvious channels to get in any information that you need. And yeah, community calls. I hope this event has made you think that UV community is something you want to get involved in, that we're a nice, fun bunch. I don't know, is that awful? But you know, it's really accessible for anybody. And they're enjoyable. And I think our community sprints are great fun to be involved in, and they offer great opportunities of upskilling and various different things like that. So do consider it. And if nothing else, today has been so useful to see the breadth of people that are interested in UV. I can't believe how many people from so many different places. So we're really going to use that information to be able to reach out and engage you in an improved way, I think. So Sarah, do you have anything to add from your end?
No, I just wanted to thank everybody who came. We had a really good, diverse mix of people. So thank you for taking the time today. I know it's quite a long set of sessions. I'll just do the old not like and subscribe. Join us on Slack. Come to GitHub. It's not that scary. Slack isn't scary at all. It's just another thing to remember a password for. Please join us on Slack. Fill in the Menti form if you can. That would be wonderful. And yeah, please come and join us as part of the community. That would be really great.
Damien, have you got anything you'd like to add from a technical perspective?
Well, I do feel like many of our conversations in the technical side address technical debt in different ways. And I think maybe having a very broad sprint dedicated to reducing technical debt might be a logical next step, because I think it could potentially encompass all of the things we've talked about: fixing dependency issues, converting code to React, experimenting with new IIIF libraries. And, you know, I realize having a totally unfocused sprint is not a good thing. But in terms of collecting all the issues, breaking up into teams, having different people doing work and reporting back to one another, you know, if we had a large number of people involved in that sprint, I think we could do a lot of things in parallel and collaborate and, you know, see what happens.
So do you think we can commit to delivering a roadmap as a result of a roadmap of sprints, a roadmap of whatever, as a result of this, maybe in the new year?
I think we could easily do that.
Yeah, I think it should be a priority for our next steering group call.
Yes.
Or the one after, or the January. Yeah, we'll see who's here before Christmas.
Yeah. Yeah. So roadmap in the new year as a result of this, I think it would be a fantastic outcome.
Right.
Fab. So we'll be sharing the recordings from today, not the breakout sessions. We'll share the presentations. I think that's on the YouTube channel. And we'll also be sure to keep the community updated on various outcomes and things that we've actioned as part of this, just so that you know that your involvement has resulted in something, which it will. But yeah, I just want to say thank you to everybody, to my fellow steering group members for all the work and not, I don't know, killing me about making you all do this, because it's been fab. It's been brilliant. And all the presenters, thank you as well. I know you're all busy with your day jobs, so it's fantastic. And everyone's showing up. It was amazing. And I think all the different conversations just shows how much expertise and enthusiasm is in our community. It never fails to sort of blow me away. So I think Sarah's put the link again. We're spamming you with this Slack. The joining details. We're a very chatty bunch on Slack, and we always, I think, will respond pretty quickly. I say we, it's Damien. He's very quick on Slack. Our next community sprint, as I said, is Tuesday. We have a 2-hour inception. It's at 2 o'clock to address any type of time zone issues. And it'd be great to see people there if you can. And it can be quite low commitment. You don't have to, you know, be spending all day every day doing community issues. You can just come and watch and be informed if you want. It's 15 minutes each day. It's fine. But if you can't make it, have a look at our community board, so you'll get a really good idea of what we've prioritised and what we're working on and our progress. And you can maybe get on Slack and tell us we should be working faster. I don't know. We also have
to be a stakeholder, sorry, for the project, and you don't want to come to all the daily scrums, etc. Yeah, we can. Please join us on Slack, and we'll let you know that when the review is. So at the end of each sprint, you're welcome to come to the review as a stakeholder. That's a good option for someone who's limited time, I think.
Yeah, that's a good point. And yeah, and those sessions are open to all and recorded as well. So it'd be great to have you there. And yeah, just before we finish, I want to I don't know if everyone on this call knows, but the Universal Viewer has been shortlisted for an Open UK award. So Open UK is, well, they say it's the Oscars of open source, which sounds very grand. And we've been shortlisted in the community category. The award ceremony is on the 4th of December, and we're being represented by James Misson, who is getting his tux on and going on our behalf. So keep your eyes peeled for the results. I mean, just being acknowledged for an award like that in that category, I think just shows what we've all built together and how impressive it is. So everyone keep your fingers crossed for us. So yeah, so that's probably everything. Have I forgotten anything, Sarah and Damien? Would anybody is there anything that anybody would like to contribute before we sign off? Okay, sounds like everyone's brains are fried, which is probably a good sign. But yeah, thank you very much for attending UVCON 2025, and we'll see you next year.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, everyone.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye.